Hi, welcome to my next video. This time I wanted to show you something a bit different because even though this looks like a part of the Tokyo Storyfronts or New Storyfront series, this is actually a standalone shop that I drew recently for the Japanese BIC Tsubo program, which was made by the NHK television. I was really happy and excited to be asked by NHK to participate in the BIC Tsubo television program because this is actually a program that we knew, that we watched sometimes. This is an art-related program, a documentary program that showcases Japanese modern but also traditional art-related topics. And they wanted me to participate in the special edition of this program, which was retro architecture themed, and it turned out to be mostly Tokyo's retro architecture themed. Usually I don't take requests to participate in television programs because most of the requests that come to me from Japanese television stations are about my personal life and my life as a foreigner in Japan and my experience of Japan as a foreigner, and do not usually focus on the art that I do, so I mostly reject them. But here we actually knew the program, we knew that it will focus on what I do, and furthermore they wanted to showcase my book Tokyo Storyfronts, and they wanted me to do a storefront for them based on a real store in Tokyo, so that was perfect to showcase my art, so I agreed. Also, it was interesting because my art was going to be used in a segment of this program explaining about Kanban Kenchiku, which is a type of architecture in Japan which has the buildings, the shops, having a really gorgeous front, which is the kanban, so the sign or figurehead or poster for this shop, and the rest of the building, so the sides and the back, are just this utilitarian, simple thing, most of the time tucked away between two other shops, so we don't see them from the street. You can think about them as a bit similar to these fake Wild West stores in some attractions that we saw in the movies, where just the front is kind of realistic, but the rest is just like a simple utilitarian building that no one sees because it's just for the staff. I actually really like these kind of stores because of their over-designed and over-the-top fronts, but also because although the backs of the stores are mostly simple, they are also living spaces, so they have this unique kind of homely feel to them. I painted some of these stores in my Tokyo Storyfronts book, so NHK asked me if I can paint one more for them for this program to make the segment about the Kanban Kenchiku type of buildings a bit more interesting. We tried to look for some stores that were close to our house, so I was able to just walk there. I didn't have to use the train in the pandemic, so I just went there, took some photos, walked around, just looking for some interesting views and buildings, talked to the producer of the program, and they filmed the whole thing. In the end, I decided to paint this store, which was a bakery called Kimuraya, located in the Tsukiji part of Tokyo, famous of the fish market. I said was right now because actually a week ago or so, Kana found news on the local newspaper that this shop is going to be closed at the end of the month after, I think, more than 100 years of being there. I was really lucky that I managed to capture it in my painting and also in the NHK program, but of course we won't get these awesome anpan breads anymore from which this shop was famous. I know that some of the stores from the Tokyo Storefronts book that I painted are gone already, but that was a few years ago. Here I just painted it and then a month and a half later it's already gone, so it's a bit of a shock for me actually. Anyway, I went there, I took some reference photos and then based on them made pencil sketches to figure out the shop front. I wanted to change and add some things because in its current condition it was a bit run down. For example, on the left side the shop sign that was supposed to be there was no longer there because it fell down. It was like a wooden sign of a teapot and a bagel, so I tried to recreate it in the picture. I also tried to put together some of the parts that were kind of falling down around the windows and so on. I left some of the weathering in the picture to make it realistic, but I made it look a bit prettier than it was actually in reality. The next step was to make the lines with the fountain pen. I used here the same tool that I'm using for the new Storyfront series, so the IndiGraph fountain pen with waterproof carbon ink for the lines. This gives me really nice black lines that are completely waterproof, so I can paint over them with watercolors. And also I wanted to use a process that I'm really used to, so it won't surprise me during the making of the program, because the staff of the program also came to our apartment to film me actually painting and drawing, and to film the finished painting also. So I had to be sure of the process and of the results it will give me. The next step was, of course, painting the whole thing with watercolors. I chose to use the Mijello Mission Gold set for its vibrant colors, but I didn't do a color test first because I had the reference photos that I was working from. And also I was working on a tight schedule, so I didn't have actually time to do this. The main difficult part of painting this picture was to at the same time show that this is a cute storefront, so it has a lot of unique details on the store itself, but also show the warm insides and the deliciously looking bread, which is the main point of the store right now. So I paid a lot of attention to the details of the insides and how the bread is presented, and to the color and the details of the bread itself. Okay, have fun watching the rest of the painting process, and I'll meet you at the end of the video. Okay, so the picture is nearly finished. I'm happy how the shop turned out, even though it was a bit of a difficult piece to balance and I had a tight deadline. I like how the shadows and the details and the weathering on the storefront turned out, but also am pleased that we can see the warm insides of the shop, and the bread itself also has a prominent part in this picture. I'm also pleased that I was able to give this piece the feel of the original Tokyo Storefronts book, like the style of the shadows for example, while also applying some things that I learned during the new Storefronts series, like the overall feel of the colors and how I draw the details. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. As always, feel free to comment, share and subscribe, and you can also support me on Patreon. It's your support on Patreon that allows me to make and edit and upload these videos. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye!